Hey there guys, it's Anthony here from Cutting Edge Guitar, and in today's video I'm going to be answering the question, do rock guitar players know music theory? Let's get right into it. Okay guys, first things first, this question is coming from my subscribers at Cutting Edge Guitar. If you want to get involved in asking me questions that I can answer for you here through the YouTube channel, consider becoming a member, supporting my content, and I will answer all of the questions that you've got or help you out in any way that I can. You can also check out my advanced guitar courses, my books, downloadable lessons, and all sorts of other things at Cutting Edge Guitar there too. Okay, so this is a rather big question. I've recently been asked this, as I say, through my online subscribers, but I've been asked this a lot by lots of students in the studio over the years and all that sort of thing. So it's quite an interesting one. Generally speaking, anyone who's taken a lesson from me that might be interested in people who are on the Wall of Fame. So we've got Guthrie Govan up there. I have Joe Satriani, Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Jason Becker's over this side on the wall, some of the other people that you can't see over here. I have pictures of people like John Petrucci, Frank Gambale, who's not necessarily an out-and-out rock player, he's more a fusion player, but Richie Kotzen, Eric Johnson, Paul Gilbert. Actually, there's a picture of Jimi Hendrix on the wall up here too. So These are the kind of guitar players that I'm most interested in, but I'm a fan of like anyone who's ever been great on the guitar. Virtuosos, Sean Lane, Alan Holdsworth, Brett Garsed. Oh, the list is endless. You know, you name it. If they're a great guitar player, I've been into them. They're not just rockers or fusion guys as well. Blues guys, Robin Ford, Larry Carlton, jazzers like John Schofield, Pat Martino. Anyone who's great at guitar. I love anyone who's great at guitar, right? So when people come along for lessons with me, generally speaking, they'll either be someone who's an intermediate sort of player who wants to get involved in all of that advanced stuff, or, you know, I teach beginners who have never heard of any of this stuff before. The people who ask this question tend to be the kind of player who would be into Guns N' Roses, Metallica, AC/DC, you know, that kind of rock. And I think the reason why this question gets asked is because guitar players generally don't want to learn the technical side. They just want to get into playing, and I get that completely. I remember being a young guitar player. I remember being a kid who really wasn't interested in that side of things, but when you want to get into sick levels of guitar playing, that's when everything changes. So the thing is, right, do guitar players know theory, or do rock guitar players know theory? If we're talking about someone who generally plays quite basic, and off the top of my head I can't even think of someone who I would say is a basic guitar player, but let's say, I don't know, like the Rolling Stones, for example. Do they know music theory? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I would hazard a guess. I would bet that they don't know much, okay? And that's not just based on the way that they play and the stuff that they write and all that stuff. It's kind of, I've come up with that opinion just based on a little bit of what you hear, but also based on the very, very rock and roll lifestyle that those kind of people lead. You can't imagine them wanting to sit in a room and being really studious about learning scales and all that stuff. On the flip side, people like Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, you know, I'll pick those two out of the hat of my Wall of Fame. Absolutely, they know guitar theory inside, well, not guitar theory, but music theory inside and out. And of course, you hear that sort of thing in the compositions of someone like Joe Satriani, where he might play a little melody and he'll come up with something that he will say like, oh, the mood of this needs to be in A Dorian, so he'll do something that's using the notes A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G back to A. based on the theory that he needs that. And then his melody and his riff, it might change to a thing where it needs to sound Egyptian, and he'll go, right, I'm going to change the sound of my melody that I'm playing to sound like it's got a very Egyptian flavour, which might sound something like this. Now that's using a scale that's called Phrygian dominant. Anyone who knows Joe Satriani's material knows that he's a big fan of all that stuff. And how you'll get into that, theoretically, I mean, you can learn some shapes on the guitar, but it's also about, if you're writing a melody, going, right, I want to affect the riff or the melody or whatever it is that I'm playing by changing these particular intervals, and these particular intervals against that chord will give me that sound. That's knowing music theory. So people like Kirk Hammett, for example, from Metallica, he knows music theory. To what absolute extent, I don't know. I've never sat in a room with the guy and asked him, but he had lessons with Joe Satriani. And when you listen to some of the solos that are on albums like Master of Puppets or Injustice for All, he's using a lot of the stuff there that he was doing with Satriani. He's using these scales on purpose to get those particular effects. So, of course, he's using music theory. Another big name, someone like Slash, for example. Does Slash know music theory? To a point, I would say no. He clearly uses lots of scales in his work and all that stuff. He knows this, but I think that Slash is probably more an ear player. I don't know this, but I'm just thinking on my feet, and having watched some interviews with Slash, when he explains things, sometimes he explains it in a way where he kind of doesn't give you the confidence enough to make you think you actually know exactly what you're talking about in terms of the theory. Does that mean that he's not a great guitar player, though? Of course it doesn't. Like, Guns N' Roses are an amazing band. You know, AC/DC and, you know, all of their sort of stuff, like classic rock and all of that sort of thing. Does Angus Young know music theory? I don't know. You'd guess that probably not loads. Certainly not in the way that someone like Joe Satriani does, but it doesn't matter to their music. So the real crux of this, though, is the reason why someone like me as a guitar teacher would get asked this question, I think, is because a student is hoping that I'm going to turn around and go, no, they just do it all on feel, and you don't need to bother learning any of this stuff, because really nobody wants to learn the theory. I'll tell you now, learning some theory is incredibly empowering and incredibly useful to your music. A lot of people will say, I don't want to learn the theory because it will kill my feel and all that stuff. And that is a very, very misguided way of looking at things. Theory can only help you give names to the things that sound good, really. In an absolute, the simplest nutshell, theory is just the names for the things that sound good. And if you have something that you go, that sounds really good, and I now know what it's called and I understand why it works, you can call on it again later and use it in your own music. So there we go, guys. That is my answer to that question. I hope it's been helpful. Drop me a line in the comments. By all means, let me know what you think, and consider joining the Cutting Edge Guitar community, where you can get involved with the other guys that are asking me all these sorts of questions. Join the conversation. And one of the things about Cutting Edge Guitar, what we like to do is we keep all of the negativity out. There's no need for the negativity. There's lots of stuff that you see out there on YouTube. People putting hate on this and that out there, and we just don't need it, and we keep that out at Cutting Edge Guitar. So if you want to get involved in the conversation where you can be in a friendly environment where no one is going to say horrible things to you, come over to Cutting Edge Guitar. Okay guys, thanks very much for watching. Take care, make sure you like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.